You're listening to Accounted For, the Canadian podcast that explores the intangibles of every career. I'm your host, Daniel Lee. Hello, welcome back to Accounted For, everybody. Happy hump day, happy Wednesday. This is the podcast on a mission to inspire unconventional careers out of you, and it's a part of OMD Ventures, my platform on a mission to create utopian organizations. What does that mean? Well, learn and find out by going to omdventures.com, and you can go to the About page, the Vision page, all of that, and learn more about what I'm trying to create with the platform, and also maybe more about the podcast too if you don't really know what started all this. There's a backstory there too. And if you'd like to engage with me further and ask me questions about careers, etc., please go ahead and shoot me a message at the contact page, omdventures.com/contact. And if you just go to the website, it's very intuitive, very easy for you to send me an email. I love hearing from all you, my listeners. And yeah, I would love to help out any way I can to your career dilemmas, or maybe even life dilemmas, who knows. Also, you can also stay in touch by subscribing to my weekly newsletter. It's pretty exclusive because I write about the stuff that happens in my life every week, and that's not available anywhere else except the newsletter. So sign up. It's a weekly thing. And you get to keep track of all the other stuff like the essay podcast and the daily learnings, etc. Okay, cool. Now that's settled. Today's guest is Shawn Hwang. He is the founder and CEO of 36paths. So that's 36 different paths, P-A-T-H-S. I noticed that I'm not very good at pronouncing that word, so I just want to carefully line that out. 36paths is a career accelerator based in Toronto, and this kind of is a pretty cool story here because Shawn immigrated to Canada as an international student from a city 2 hours outside of Shanghai, China. And despite having a family tree filled with academics in all subjects of science, and I'm not exaggerating, I think like father's side, mother's side, grandparents, everyone's got some kind of PhD in some kind of the big six or the big three science groups. Yeah, it's insane. But despite that, he decided to study business to chase an internal entrepreneurial fire that had him sell soda cans as a kid. I think he started drop shipping shoes as a kid through Alibaba. And all that kind of led to really building a career in finance as an investment banker and later on as a product manager for a FinTech startup in Toronto. But after that, he made the leap to go full-time into his career accelerator that helps international students like himself get jobs in various business careers, aka places in like finance, accounting, consulting, etc., all the professional services places that he had difficulty getting into in his own first tryout. And so in our chat, we talk about his journey, starting 36 Paths, kind of the details of what got him into it, and how he started while he was actually working, the cultural differences between Shanghai and Toronto from not just a societally culturally different lens, but also specifically try to go into the business field about how the culture kind of results in a different corporate culture as well. And we also talk about what the first 6 months of his solopreneurship journey has been like. It's honestly been a conversation I really enjoyed having, and a lot of it also not just because I get to learn new stuff about Shawn, but also because we get to go quite deep and real into sharing the things that we both experienced in our first 6 months of this journey, this shit sandwich that we ate on our respective journeys. And so that was pretty fun, I would say. It's like talking to kindred spirit of sorts, and you might actually get a lot of value out of that too, because it's kind of like having two people validate something. And we also learned that we are not alone in feeling like this. So if you feel down in your own journey, this might be a great episode to listen to, so that you also realize that you are not alone in feeling like that, because everyone else on the weird, unconventional journey will feel that too. All right. I've been blabbering on long enough, so here is my conversation with Shawn. Hey everyone, welcome back to Accounted For. Today on the podcast, we have Shawn Hwang. He is the founder and CEO of 36paths. Hey Shawn, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Daniel.
And so for our guests who may not be familiar with your company, can you tell us what 36paths does?
Sure. Yeah, so 36paths is essentially a career accelerator that's focused on helping university students and young professionals to, break into the industry of financial services or management consulting. We primarily help guys with very limited Canadian experience or international students because I found them struggle the most with their career journey, and there's a huge information asymmetry and a lack of understanding in terms of culture, communication, insider tips in order to get into those industries. So what I do is think about it as a Airbnb for career coaching, right? So you have mentors who work in different industries like capital markets, investment banking, management consulting, and you have a bunch of students last year in their university or just graduated, wanted to break into those industries. So I match them up and have those industry mentors to basically teach them whatever it takes to get into those industries, such as having a better understanding of the industry, helping them with their resume, cover letter, mock interviews, networking skills. So basically kind of end-to-end process until they land an offer. And yeah,
okay,
that's kind of what we do in a nutshell.
Nice. That's a very succinct explanation. And the name 36paths, what are the 36paths?
Oh, that's a tough one. I can't even name all the 36 paths, but the origin of the name is that there's an old saying in China, in ancient China, when the emperor was originally kind of creating different career categories. The very first time there was 36 paths in total. Oh. And it eventually kind of got expanded to 3,600, 33,000. I'm sure there are different type of occupations now, but 36 paths is kind of the very first time when the emperor was kind of establishing all the different career paths available. So you have like merchant, government official, tailor. So that was kind of and I guess what I wanted to. The reason I decided to choose this name is because, well, first, it's available, and secondly, because it's something because I have a lot of my clients or customers are from China because I had a Chinese background, and it's something that resonate well with them, and it's kind of congruent with the the company's mission as well.
Right.
So whatever it's kind of like whatever career path you decide to take. As long as you're committed to it and, you love what you do, you love the work, you fall in love with the work, and you'll be really successful. And
so it seems like, your company's focused on a lot of international clients, a lot from China, and your company name definitely speaks for it. So I'm going to guess that you were born in China. Like, is that
correct?
Your origin?
So my, I guess my background, I was born and raised in China. And
where specifically was it Shanghai?
It's actually I usually tell people Shanghai because that's big city they know, but it's actually 2 hour away by train. It's more like Barrie of Toronto, I guess, that relationship. But if I tell them the name, it's actually called Hefei. That's where I was born. But it's 2 hour train from Shanghai, just further west.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so you grew up there the whole time, and then I think you went to university in Shanghai as well, right?
So Hefei, for people that don't understand, it's I would say it's probably a tier 2 city. It's more like a Mississauga. It's not Barrie. That's not fair.
It's a pretty big city.
It's a pretty big city,
actually.
Yeah, it's probably just a bit smaller than. Actually, I think it's probably a bit smaller than Toronto, but definitely more developed than Mississauga, just in terms of like skyscrapers.
I can imagine
commercial activity. The Asian cities, right? It's not as developed as Shanghai or Hong Kong, but it's up there.
It's hard to compete with Shanghai or Hong Kong for most cities, right?
Yeah,
I think
it's tough.
So I guess you could say like if Hefei was a city in Canada, it'd probably be in the top 10 major cities.
It's for sure. in Canada, I mean, I look it up on Google. Mississauga is number 6. When I was deciding to come over to Canada, I'm like, because I went to UTM, so University of Toronto Mississauga campus. And I look it up. I'm like, I know Toronto is a big city, right? I'm like, what is Mississauga? I don't even know how to pronounce the name by the time I was in China. I'm like, okay, this sounds interesting. And I look it up on Baidu, which is Chinese version of Google, and shows up, oh, the largest, sixth largest city in Canada with, you know, whatever the by population or whatever. I'm like, okay, I should be in good shape. Like I'm a big city guy. I want to be in the city. And when I got there, I'm like, oh man, it's the sixth largest city in Canada. That's depressing. You know, I was waiting for the bus for like half an hour when I was at UTM. But yeah, so I grew up in Hefei, and I always wanted to explore. I guess I'm more always kind of curious type of guy. Yeah. So I wanted to see, you know, the bigger city, the kind of the other side of the world, and Shanghai became kind of a natural choice for me because, you know, I was determined to major in like BCom or BBA at that time, and I thought, you know, Shanghai is the kind of most commercial city in mainland China, and I was in a program where I got an opportunity to do a double degree where my second degree came from Australian University, so I got that kind of Western exposure as well, which is what I was hoping to get, yeah, it turns out to be a great choice looking back, I think.
And when you're growing up, what, like, I'm gonna take you kind of back to like maybe you're like 7 or like 10 or something. Yeah. You know, when you start school and teachers ask you, what do you want? What's your dream job? Like, what was yours back then?
I think, okay, yeah, when I was a kid, I always wanted to become like a business owner. Like, frankly, yeah, I was always pretty good. Like, I was always kind of having that entrepreneurial fire in me. And when I was even in elementary school, I was like, you know, collecting, you know, Pepsi cans and stuff like that, and from like my neighbors, and pile them up and sell to the, the recycling company for some, you know, pocket money. And when I was in my middle school, at that time Alibaba was just getting popular, and I'm more interested in exploring new things, and I was more knowledgeable in e-commerce at that time. So I got into kind of buying, you know, sneakers on Alibaba or Taobao in China, and sell back to my classmates and pocket the difference, because, you know, the shoes in the retail stores are much more expensive because of the middleman, right? Versus Alibaba's more, you know, direct to consumer. So I was able to kind of arbitrage that until everyone was on Taobao. So I got to, you know, basically the business idea was short-lived, but it was profitable.
Wow.
So
were your parents entrepreneurs?
Not at all. Funny enough, yeah. Like my dad still is a university professor teaching C++, so like computer science. My mom works in the government in agriculture and fishery business. So both my grandparents, my uncles on my mom and dad's side are all kind of academic route. So they did, you know, PhD, teaching at universities. So I was kind of an outlier in a sense that I'm more interested in business, and everyone's like, oh, why don't you major in math or physics or chemistry or biology, which is what my mom did, biology, my dad did computer science, my uncle did chemistry, the other uncle did, you know, physics, and my grandmother on my dad's side did math, and my grandfather on my dad's side also did chemistry. So it's like, oh, well, you want to do business? Why? Like, people don't get it, but
and it's just kind of, you're just like proving out that Asian stereotype. Like, yeah, it's a stereotype because it's true. Look at my entire family tree. Everyone's done every kind of science out there.
Yeah, I just didn't. I just find it like those. You know, I was good at math, but I wasn't as interested in kind of science. I find it too theoretical when I was in high school, and I found the business world more interesting because you get to relate to people. And I was always, you know, interested in kind of making money, making profits and stuff like that. So very much a capitalism in a communist country, funny enough.
Yeah, I'm wondering, where did you get that influence from? If you didn't get it from your family at such an early age to have the idea of just, I'm going to sell Pepsi cans, I want to make profit, and doing like drop shipping before it was even cool.
Yeah, so I think there was a bit of influence on my grandfather on my mom's side. So he used to like trade stocks a lot. So he took me to like stock exchange, and I was looking at the board, right? Like there's red and green. And funny enough, like in China, the green actually is losing money.
It's the same in Korea too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's strange, but
yeah. When I was investing in Korea, when in my like past job at Moore, I'd look at Korean stocks and I'd be like, why is it all red? But it's going up.
Right. Yeah. When I first came to Canada, I was shocked. I'm like, wow, completely opposite. But it's interesting to know that Korea is like China too. But yeah. So that's why I got interested. At that time, I was really small. I don't think I was even in elementary school yet. I was like probably 5 and 6. But I was just fascinated by the idea of like people, going to a stock exchange and, yelling at each other, trying to buy the next hot stock and making money. And at that time is, stock certificates. There's no online trading, right? So I just got interested in it, I think, and I decided to pick up because my grandfather always had like, that financial news channel on TV, and I just kind of subconsciously get influenced by that. And I thought it's more interesting. And I think it's a little by little, you gradually kind of decided to move toward that path because the more experience you got, the more exposure you got, and if you got some success from it, which I did, through like, selling, basically collecting, Pepsi cans and stuff like that, and made some money and did, sneaker trading or, arbitraging, I guess, and made some profits, and thought, oh, wow, that's really cool. I wanted to learn more about the business world, I think. But I think the initial spark, I guess, probably is my grandfather. Yeah. And he also owned properties and stuff like that and rented out, and just like, he's more on the business side of things. And I happened to just kind of got intrigued.
Oh, that's very fascinating. Like I'm always curious because especially for people, out of the many guests I've had the great fortune of interviewing, I haven't had many who had a good chunk of their childhood in Asia, like myself. And I find,
oh, you did too?
Yeah. So I was born in South Korea, so I lived there for 5 years, and then moved to Hong Kong. So I lived in Hong Kong for another 5 years. Yeah.
Wow.
And so my dad was in finance, and so I was in Hong Kong right after the Brits left. So it was still in the high, like it's booming, big economic hub. And so I grew up around always visiting my dad's like skyscraper offices. I was flying all over Asia because the economy was doing well. And I feel like my childhood dream at the time was I wanted to travel the world and go to safaris. And I collected a lot of books on reptiles and animals, and I always wanted to be like a zoologist and kind of like, do you know the crocodile hunter?
Crocodile hunter sounds familiar.
Yeah, so Steve Irwin, he's a crocodile hunter. He just goes around and finds crocodiles, and he has like a whole TV show. Like that's like what I wanted to be. I wanted to be in a Jeep, have like a rifle, and just go travel the world and find animals. And I feel like being such a young kid living in Hong Kong, where I was a foreigner, even though I look Asian, but I was very different compared to everyone else. And
you don't speak the language.
Yeah, and I was in an international school where everyone else was from everywhere else. And
right. Okay.
I'm always traveling, so I just assume that this is normal. I'm probably going to travel all my life. And that just became this thing ingrained in my mind. And like Toronto's like the 6th city that I've lived in, and that just continues on, I think. But it's always fascinating to hear, because I find a lot of Canadians, when they grow up in Canada, a lot of kind of guys at least specifically kind of dream up of, I want to be in the NHL, play hockey, or something similar that way. More stereotypically Canadian, but I'm always curious of what the other kids who grew up in Asia go through, right? So that's been very fascinating for me. And so you had the great, it seems cool. You got to go to study in Shanghai, and then you also went to the University of Technology at Sydney and did a dual degree there. I've never had the chance to go to Australia, but I'm very curious on from what you've observed from your time in like Sydney, and you compared to Toronto at least, like what are the differences in culture?
Right. I'm going to tell you right now that I never been to Australia, even though I got Australian university.
Okay, so that's
so how it works is actually they have a Shanghai campus for University of Technology Sydney, Australia. So the professors fly over. We don't have to actually go to Sydney to get that degree, which is interesting, and it's getting popular. If you look at New York University, has a campus in Shanghai. There are a few other schools have like the campuses similar to like INSEAD have, the Singapore campus, right? So a lot of those, kind of famous universities, I'm not even famous, like a lot of kind of Western universities are setting up campuses in Asia to basically profit from it. And also it's it's just getting really popular. I think a lot of times people in Asia, especially in China, they value very highly of a Western degree, and not only just experience, but being able to speak English well, or it's going to be tremendously helpful in terms of your job search, even in China, especially in cities like Shanghai, where there are a lot of expats and kind of multinational corporations. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Huh. That's a
sorry to disappoint you.
No, it's all right, man. But that's a cool loophole that I didn't consider. Yeah, I think actually, as you mentioned, I think the London School of Economics has something like that in China too. A few of my friends did that.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a pretty cool development though, to see the kind of change in universities. Yeah. Well, it's okay. I don't think I'll be disappointed because you've still lived in Shanghai and you've also worked in Shanghai. I think you interned at HSBC, and
right.
Since then you came to Toronto. You went to the Masters of Accounting program at U of T, and since then you've had a financial career in Toronto. Like you've worked at Scotiabank in the debt capital market side. You've joined a boutique investment bank, Cantor Fitzgerald, worked there. So you've had an experience working in Shanghai and Toronto in the financial world. Yeah. So I'm very curious on that too. I've never been to Shanghai. It's definitely on my list of countries to go to after I get a visa. Yeah. But I'm very curious to hear from your experience. What are some differences that people will be very surprised to hear about?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference that I notice is that people in Asia or people in China or in Shanghai are just way more competitive, and that's the nature of the sheer population, right? So you have a huge, I don't know what's the number now, it's like 1.5 billion or 1.6 billion people just in China, and Shanghai is the size of GTA, but give you some perspective, it's similar to the population in Canada.
Yeah, I think, isn't it 80 million people or something like that, in Shanghai alone? It's a massive city.
Yeah, it's crazy, and we got 17 subway lines. But anyways, the biggest difference in my opinion is that people are just more competitive, and they definitely work much harder, and I think they don't take things for granted as much as Canadians. I'm not saying it in a negative way. I just think guys who were born and raised here have a privilege in terms of being a developed country with the freedom, being able to go to university is very normal, versus back there, if you are not good at math, good luck getting to any university at all, right? It's super competitive process, and for it's a natural selection process where you have to do really well in high school in order to get good universities, and once you get to university, you're basically in a good shape, but you still have to work hard to get into corporations, especially under a lot of traditional Chinese family. They have that mindset of, okay, if you want to have a successful life, do well at high school, or from when you start to go into school all the way to university, and get good grades, land a good job in a well-recognized corporation, have a good life, right? So I think that mindset is very strong, and kind of, I think, increase the competition level. Versus here, it's very, I'm not saying it's super easy, but it's not hard to go to university. Because I talk to my girlfriend all the time. I'm like, with your math skill and you can still get into University of Waterloo, that's shocking. I'm hoping that she doesn't hear this, but I'm just being very honest about how the differences I have been noticing. I just think in China it's super competitive to get into good universities and good corporations as well. So whereas here it's fairly easier, I think.
And what was there a particular moment where, let's say, kind of had work in Toronto, whether it was at the investment bank or at Scotiabank, where you kind of experienced something and you thought, this is very different from what I had to go through back at HSBC, or when you were at PayPal in Shanghai?
Yeah,
there's a cultural, a working culture difference.
For sure. That in that aspect, I think the first thing that kind of shocked me, or it wasn't a shocker, but I kind of knew that before, but it's that small talk, right? So let's say you work at, I don't know, EY or Scotiabank or whatever. You guys, talk about every day you come in, how was your weekend? What did you do? How was your trip? And this and that. In China, I think people are more, especially if you're a junior, people are more about business, get that stuff done. Like, I don't care how was your weekend. They don't do the small talk like that, because I think partially because they think it's kind of fake. It's like a fake nice almost, and partially because it just much fast-paced environment, right? Like, think of New York times 10, in cities like Hong Kong and Shanghai. I really believe so. Versus Toronto, I think, well, it's probably fastest-paced city in Canada, but it's relatively laid back compared to like most parts of Asia. So people don't do the small talk the way we do. Oh, how did you go to see the Raptors game? This and that. Like, people don't talk about that as much. They do when they, finally celebrate like year-end party or some close major deals, and they have fun on dinner table. But when you're in office, it's more kind of straight to the business versus people talk small talk here a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a. I guess, yeah, like, I've been in this North American culture for too long to realize the difference. But I didn't know that. I'm also like thinking, when you're talking about like the kind of fast pace, like the competition, the things people will do. I think that's definitely something people who grew up in Asia or had family work there. If you've had that kind of influence, it's something that you understand, and I think it helps with becoming very grateful to be in Canada.
Sure.
And like I think you put it perfectly, where it's like, like, we're not saying people in Toronto don't work hard. You do. Like, people in Toronto work hard, and life is hard for everyone, but it's a relative thing where
absolutely.
I think like even like Korea was I think Korea at one point, when the country went bankrupt in like 1998 or something. Like, we were like the third poorest country in the world or something.
Wow.
This was after we were the third poorest country after, I think it was World War II, or like after the Korean War. Like, we were just dirt poor. People were like going to cannibalism and shit like that. Damn. But and Shanghai wasn't rich either. Like, it just kind of boomed really quickly, right? And so when you kind of come through that kind of, I think, culture, you have this pace of competition where there's a scarcity effect. There's so much people. Like, I tell people about how I used to tell colleagues, like, like, if in Korea, like, when you're a junior, you're like a junior at a bank. Like, you're going out, like, cleaning your boss's dress shoes. That's normal. You're picking up his lunch.
Laundry,
that's normal. Like,
that's normal.
People here complain about bankers doing that and stuff, but like,
getting,
but
like, coffee, like, that's nothing.
That's nothing. Like, you're gonna get like yelled at. Like, even like the application process, you have to put in like your photo because they're gonna judge you by your face. People here are like, oh, I can't believe you're gonna judge me by my name. Like, they're gonna judge you by your face in like Asia.
Age.
Age. If you're old, no, they want someone
orientation.
Young.
For sure.
100%. Just there's none of that equality stuff there. No. That doesn't exist, and we're not saying it's right, but that's just the kind of world. Culture, that's the world that people are coming in. And I remember like when I was in Hong Kong, I was a straight C student. I was not academically good. And then I came here, I became a straight A student. I'm not saying things are easier. Like, I did start trying. But, there was a thing, like, my parents immigrated here because they believed that I wasn't going to be able to keep up with what was going on in Asia. And I think there is that perspective that's very valuable to have when you're here. And you go, okay, this is a great opportunity.
Absolutely. You feel very grateful.
And I'm curious, like, what other kind of culturally different things have you noticed in like the business world between like Shanghai and Toronto? I'm just picking your brain on that because I'm just very curious.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think another one that is very noticeable is that in China in general, or Shanghai, doesn't matter where you are in China, when people businessmen do deals, it's done at a dinner table, right? So or KTV, or sauna room, right? That's where deals happen. Here is more like maybe dinner or golf or something like that, right? But it's very different. Where in China, people like talk about business. They don't talk about business in the conference room. They talk about business when they're kind of more have their mask off, so to speak, and they want to get to know you first. It's very much built on that kind of intrinsic trust or relationship. Whereas here it's more kind of business to business, and once we close a deal in a conference room and we head over for a couple of drinks, that's it. But there, like, if you wanted to get business, get deals, you got to be able to drink, man. Like if you can't drink, you're not gonna do too well in China in terms of your business career.
You gotta be good at some baijiu.
Baijiu, that's for sure.
Yeah. How many percent is that? Like 30%, 40%?
Usually it's at least 45. I've never seen. Well, maybe 42 is the lowest, but usually like 50 is pretty much like pure alcohol.
Yeah, you're just drinking gasoline.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I remember. Well, there's 2 points that kind of popped into it as you were talking. Like I remember when I started working in downtown Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had one manager who told me I was very upset about something. I don't remember what, but what she said was, "Dan, this business is not personal." And I replied back to her, "All business is personal. This is personal." And I couldn't wrap my head around why she was saying it's different. Like, well, how can it be different? It's a person-to-person thing. That's what business is.
Right.
And I think it's like that's like a direct, literal thing in China where you're doing a deal with a person because you want to get to know a person.
Yeah.
But I think there's a bit of that in Western culture where they want to try to separate that and be like, let's look at the numbers and be more objective or quote unquote rational about things, when the reality is that people are not rational by definition.
Yeah. I don't think there's a better way of doing things. I think it's just part of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I do like the fact that, in Canada, things are, people are typically do better at compartmentalizing, right? Okay, this is business. We'll deal with business. After 5 p.m., I'm emotionally or mentally checked out and enjoy my time with my kids or, with my wife, this and that. Versus in Asia or in China, right? It's on 24/7. There's no like work-life balance. It's like you in that kind of fast-paced environment, you're pulled into work all the time. It's like you're trying to do your best to integrate your work and life rather than say, 9 to 5 I'm at the bank. After 5, I'm completely checked out, right? That just doesn't happen in China as often.
I'd actually like to get your perspective on this one. Like, so in Korea, it's very similar to you, where there's the working culture where let's say you leave the office, quote unquote, at 5, but then, like you said, the deals happen at the dinner table and at the clubs and at the drinking bars. So no one actually gets to go home until like 10 p.m. at the earliest or something. Right. I remember I never saw my dad home before 10 p.m. Like he always came
at dinner tables,
like after,
stuff.
whatever he did then. And I think it's gotten to such a bad point in Korean culture that all the major corporations like Samsung and like CJ and Lotte, all these big companies in Korea decided, okay, we're gonna only require you to go to the first bar. You don't have to go to the next 3 bars, because that the average is 3. You're supposed to bar hop to like 3 for like every day. And so Samsung put a freeze on like corporate credit cards until like 8 p.m. or something, so people can quote unquote go home as of 8 p.m. because the company's no longer going to pay for your drinks. Right. But even then, it's kind of said that you're gonna be working quote unquote till 8 because you're gonna be serving drinks,
entertaining clients.
Entertaining clients, entertaining your boss. Like when you're a junior, you're pouring drinks for all your bosses. And
you better.
Like I was in a coffee shop in Korea, and the junior guys on the table beside me were like stressing out about talent shows and stuff. Like, I gotta learn dancing because I gotta perform in front of my boss. Because you're supposed to entertain the bosses. That's what you are. You're a junior. They don't care about your brain. And that was very it's very normal in Korean work culture. I'm curious about, is that similar in China too?
Similar. You do whatever your boss tells you. Right.
I remember a friend of mine came back from China and he's telling me, like I met up with my friend there and she couldn't come out and like hang with us because she's like, I have to go to this bar. That's where I'm gonna close this deal. I'm gonna close this deal at this bar. And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, even at the junior levels, everyone's got to do that. Even in China, too. Wow.
Yeah, well, a lot of times it's that, let's say your boss doesn't want to drink as much, but you're on the team of your boss, right? So you basically pick up those drinks so that your boss doesn't get drunk. So your boss can still make the speech and talk about, the business with the clients while you get, completely drunk.
So and you're the body.
You take the bullets, I guess. That's very normal. And if you want to, career progression, so to speak, you better. That's what I'm saying. You better be able to drink a lot.
Yeah. Oh man, I would have done. I'll do awful in Asian culture.
That's why I left. Because I enjoy a couple beers and here and there, but I don't want to basically every day or maybe like 3 out of 5 days you just have to be there, and it's a lot of energy. Like you have to basically, entertain your clients and drink a lot and probably puke after. That's probably not a lifestyle one. That's why I decided, I want to, come to Canada and see what's here.
Yeah, so I'm curious there, like from Shanghai to decide to come to Mississauga, and you picked Toronto, but it happened to be Mississauga.
Yeah,
like how did that decision come about? Why Canada? Like there's
great question.
there's like Australia, that's closer. There's
much
the US,
closer.
Yeah. Like why Canada and why accounting?
Yeah, so first, why Canada? I was looking at different countries. The popular spots were like Australia, US, UK, Canada. Those are the 4 kind of popular countries for, I guess Chinese students to go for their advanced education. I ruled out the States because actually, even though that my uncle and my cousin are in the States, my cousin's in Utah, Salt Lake City, and my uncle has been living in the States at that time for like 15 years in Dallas, Texas. But I just, for some reason, I just didn't like it. I think it's people are mean compared to Canada, and their overall kind of the attitude and policy too are not very friendly to international students and potential immigrants compared to Canada. I did my research, although with very limited on and off access to Google at the time. I had to climb the firewall, but the Great Wall or whatever you call it. But yeah, like in Australia, I think because I wanted to like also be close to the States and potentially like maybe go to States, and Canada has that advantage compared to Australia because Australia has equal, I think, relatively similar in terms of immigration and policy, pretty friendly too, part of the Commonwealth. But I think they're just a bit further away from like what is actually happening in terms of finance and the business world. You always talk about New York or London, right? So UK got ruled out because of unfriendly kind of immigration policy as well. So it's really just Canada and Australia, but Canada's close to the States. So if I ever wanted to be in the States, it's, geographically, closer and also share similar culture compared to, I think Canada and US probably have the most similar cultures compared to any other 2 countries, in my opinion, in the developed world. And yeah, that's kind of the rationale behind the country. Why U of T? U of T because I wasn't too sure if I wanted to just basically stay in Canada. I wanted basically hedge myself by going to a university that people back in China would, know. If I go to Laurier, people, what is Laurier? Can't even pronounce that name, right? Like University of Toronto. Oh, okay, got it. Like good school. So that's I'm trying to hedge myself by kind of getting that name, even though it's University of Toronto Mississauga campus. It doesn't really show on a certificate. So that's why, and also because the program had 2 co-op terms, and I know that going to countries like US and Canada, the local work experience is going to be tremendous. I think that's why I think Waterloo is such a good school, because all the programs there have co-op terms, and by the time undergrads graduate, they have like 1.5 or 2 years work experience. You just can't compete with that, and for someone like myself who didn't get my undergrad there, I better have some, internship experience during my master's so that if I wanted to stay here and basically progress well in terms of, for my career, then that'd be the logical kind of move. And there, honestly, not too many programs on the master level have, co-op terms. I think another one would be Laurier Master Finance. They have like 2 co-op terms as well. But like I said, I'm trying to hedge myself, so Laurier's out. And yeah, so accounting, really, again, I was trying to hedge myself, right? So I was very much risk averse actually at that time. I'm like, okay, if I could, like, I was never that interested in accounting. I did my kind of BBA degree at Shanghai University, so I basically took a bunch of different courses. Wasn't that interested in accounting, but I thought, if I can get a CPA, I wouldn't starve. I can at least go to PwC or Deloitte and become accountant. But that didn't happen because I quickly realized how boring it is. And when my colleagues at U of T were trying to get into the Big Four, I'm like, I want to do something more interesting or more exciting. So yeah, those are my answers.
Yeah, and I can relate to all that. Like the hedging, the
typical Asian family, or
yeah, you know, like
immigrant
you struggle
mindset.
with that, right? Yeah, you
Totally
balancing that. Like, yeah, when I picked Waterloo, it was challenging because, you know, there's my parents didn't know what Waterloo was, right? They didn't. I told them I'm going to this university. Well, I told them I got this offer from Waterloo, UT, like McGill, like all these places, and they knew McGill, they knew UT, they didn't know Waterloo.
Yeah.
And I told them, well, it's a practical decision. I think this is a better decision. Yeah. And but even when I was making the decision as like the 17-year-old kid, it was a struggle because culturally I felt I was going backwards against what my culture believed is more valuable. But I felt they were wrong. But it's hard to I think balance it. Even now I feel it's hard. But
absolutely
at a young age, as you still grow, like it's a hard thing to, I think, constantly push back on a culture that you grew up in with one that you're newly entering and assimilating into.
Absolutely. No, I can totally relate to that. I think as an immigrant or someone who has lived in two different countries with completely different values and cultures, you always are kind of basically having a hard time to make that choice. I think because of I think that you know the variety of perspectives can be an advantage, can sometimes also kind of put you in a spot where it's you feel like you're in a dilemma, or you don't know, or should you follow what your parents tell you to and kind of go with the norm, or should you basically listen to a gut? And there are a lot of I think a lot of immigrants share that too, like a lot of my friends too. They're they're having a hard time to reconcile that two completely different value systems, and they don't know if they should please their parents or please themselves or please the society they're in right now, let's say in Canada, right? So there are just a lot of things that they don't know the answer for, and they just have to basically make a decision and move on and see what happens and kind of course correct later on. But I think that's a struggle that immigrants had in terms of reconcile the two different values, and I'm still living in the struggle, to this day. So I'm sure you probably have similar experience. But yeah.
And before we dive into that, I kind of want to brush over the professional experience you've had. So you worked in Scotiabank in the debt capital markets, and then Cantor Fitzgerald in investment banking, and then after that you went into a FinTech company called Vauban, and you were a product manager there on, once again, the debt capital markets. And then you left that, you became a product manager at Scotiabank.
Right.
So you went back to Scotiabank, but now you're a product manager on like the credit card side, I think.
Yeah.
So all throughout that chain, there's the debt side, like credit finance seems to be like this trend. Like, were you particularly interested in credit finance, or did it just happen to be
serendipity?
It just happened like that.
Serendipity for sure. Yeah. So I'll give you kind of a quick rundown on my professional career history. So basically, I did the first term when I was basically at U of T. It was hard to like land any interviews at banks, because I wasn't that interested in Big Four. I was still applying, but I just think during the networking process, they can tell that my mind was like somewhere else. Like I wasn't even that interested in auditing or counting inventories in a warehouse and stuff like that.
Oh, you gotta sell it. Yeah, you gotta sell it real hard.
I didn't sell that really well, and I was kind of having a bit of ego issue. I'm like, getting paid for $40K to do that? Like, I have a master's degree. What are you talking about? Like, so like, I wanted to like get something more exciting, right? Like, and I think banks make sense, and I was networking hard, and I was able to get into Scotia Capital, but on the FP&A side, so financial planning and analysis. So basically, looking at the the historical financial numbers for Scotia Capital, the investment banking, and kind of sales and trading numbers. So that gave me the exposure to basically talk to those front office guys, right? Because I was at, I guess, mid office, and other than my 9-to-5 job, I was just basically getting coffees with people, because I was just really hungry. I was curious. I'm like, oh well, investment banking sounds so cool. You hear about it all the time, and like, what it is, what do those guys do? Like, how do they get in, right? So I was having, one day I had like 6 coffees. I was literally shaking my hands. And later on, I'm like, oh, there's a thing called decaf, because I didn't even know at that time. So I usually just go top bike top hike, and later on I found, oh, there's a decaf version. Well, I'm gonna go for a decaf version after maybe 3 p.m. or whatever. But yeah, those 4 months, the first term I was at Scotiabank was a great learning experience. In addition to what I was learning on the job, which wasn't as exciting. I'm the kind of guy who's like just like got interesting things for like 3-4 months, and I'm like, it's not once you kind of go over that learning curve, you're like, I think it's kind of bad, but yeah, I just like, wasn't that interesting because I got bored very easily. That's something that we can delve into that in a bit, but so I'm like, this FP&A, it's okay, it's interesting. I was making way more money than my big 4 friends are making, but I still wasn't interested as much once I got in, right? So grass is always greener, right? Like you look at, equity research, corporate banking, investment banking, debt capital markets, this and that. Those guys, 68th floor Scotia Plaza, talking to, CFO at Bell. That sounds really cool. I was basically checking their financial. That's not as interesting. So I decided to talk to those guys and figure out, and I felt like that's something that I wanted to at least give a shot and try it out for my second term. Fortunately, I was able to kind of get my second term at DCM, Debt Capital Markets. So I was basically, for people that are not that familiar with DCM, basically it's, helping corporate issuers with their with financing through issuing bonds. And I was helping like guys like, Bell, Telus, Rogers, Hydro One to issue like billions of dollar bonds. So that was interesting, and I got to be in an environment with a lot of very smart, very hardworking people, as you can imagine in that environment. And I learned a lot. But again, I wasn't as satisfied because there's always grass is always greener. I'm like, that capital markets, still more capital markets and investment banking. It wasn't very modeling heavy. It didn't have a lot of exit opportunities. Most guys, I realized they went to treasuries or become CFOs or stuff like that. It wasn't much a good exit opportunity, right? As per Wall Street Oasis, whatever. So I was dead set on getting to real investment banking, right? So
quote unquote real
real investment banking. Industry coverage, M&A, equity financing, blah blah blah. So after I graduated, I was I was still applying to like sales and trading, equity research, and just hedge myself again, right? But my mind was on investment banking, and I had a lot of interviews, final round interviews actually with RBC, BMO, Canaccord at that time. Wasn't able to convert, but eventually Cantor, they have a kind of Toronto office only focused on metals and mining at that time. They decided to give me a shot, partially because MD was from the same program that I graduated from 10 years ago. I think that had something to do with it. But yeah, it was short-lived as well. I quit in literally 6.5 months. I joined in 2016 January and quit before end of June. So the reason was I had fun for the first 4 months, and I did learn a lot. But after that, there was another person came in who I directly reported to. I have to be honest, it's really toxic, and I just didn't enjoy working with him at all. And came to a point where I just couldn't deal with him anymore, and I would rather quit than basically getting tortured or suffer, which was a huge deal for me at that time. That was the first time where I had sleeplessly nights and woke out of anxiety, because like I said, I put so much time and efforts and energy into getting into investment banking, and I feel like that was my identity, and I can't believe one guy just ruined it, kind of my dream at become an investment banker and make this experience such a short-lived, where I felt like that I didn't have any choice other than having to quit, and looking back was a good choice. I think my mental health and physical health were way more important than being there for a year or 2 years or 6 months or whatever. But it was a big, I think a big point in my life where I felt very, very low. I was very, very low. It was a very dark moment, especially because I feel like you basically, I I was at the highest point of my life where, I was doing investment banking, finally got in, international student in Canada for 2 years, got into investment banking, doing, deals, and to the point that I have to quit in that 6-month window. It was brutal. It was hard to kind of get out of that darkest moments and days. But, my girlfriend was being helpful and my parents were supportive as well. Those helped me. And so after I quit, I was starting to, network again, gradually, basically, drag myself out of those valleys, I like to call it, because I see my life as like peaks and valleys. So the very low moments and decided, there got to be a better way of going about life than just, being miserable all day. So I came out of my condo and started to reach out to people and talk to, private equity, VC, startups. And eventually I was able to get in as a, early employee at Vauban. So Vauban is similar again. It's similar to kind of what I did at DCM in Scotia. It's a FinTech startup. They just got $7.5 million by the time I joined. I joined 1 month after their seed financing. That was like largest seed financing in Canada at that time, 7.5 mil, which is a lot. And they were putting together a team. The 2 founders from CIBC, 3 co-founders actually. 2 business co-founders are ex CIBC DCM and sales and trading guys. The other co-founder, it's technical co-founder, is from IBM. But so yeah, I think I remember I was number 5 in terms of like the full-time employee other than the 3 founders. So I joined. The title was like fixed income analyst. I was basically doing everything in terms of research, talking to customers, right? Like sales, marketing, product management, finance. I was even involved in recruiting. So that was a really fun experience. And looking back, that was, I had most fun at Vauban in terms of that learning experience and basically being in a team where you have guys you can relate to, ex, finance professionals, as well as guys who work at Amazon and IBM, right? Like different backgrounds and that kind of collaboration is something that I really enjoyed. But as you know, startup is ups and downs, right? So eventually coming to a point where 2 out of 3 co-founders left, and there was a bit of legal issues between kind of the founder who remained and the only investor who invested in the company. So it came to a point where 90% employees left, and after the one of the co-founders left, I joined. I kind of left shortly after, just because it was very unfortunate. I think it's a great concept, especially for debt capital markets. It's very, very much old school, right? So a lot of Excel spreadsheets, pen and paper, in-person meetings, roadshows, and this and that, where there's a ton of room for technology to kind of streamline the process and workflow. And a lot of companies are already doing it. IPO is one who's doing kind of the IPO market in the States. And obviously debt is, 10, 20, 50 times bigger than equity, right? So there's tremendous kind of, upside potential for companies who can actually get it done. So I joined because of that, and also because I was able to kind of add value based on my kind of capital markets or investment banking background. And I did have fun, but eventually, it came to a point where I had to leave, and 90% of people left. But I did learn a lot in terms of like everything from sales and marketing to like product and financing and recruiting. So I joined. I joined Scotiabank right after. While I was at Vauban, I had that kind of 36paths going on already. That time it was basically a side hustle. I was helping students with a resume, like or mock interviews, or basically helping them understand the industry on a very ad hoc basis. But it came to a point where I just can't deal with the amount of requests I got from LinkedIn and other people who reached out to me. I said, okay, guys, why don't I do this? I help you with your resume. Give me $100. So I'll prioritize your requests over people who don't. And they're like, okay, cool. and that's where it came about. And also at that time, I was also a kind of industry career consultant on a part-time basis as well for one of the career consulting company or platform. So very similar to what I'm doing right now at 36paths, but the company was much more established. They started like 5-6 years ago. They're essentially helping, international students, primarily Chinese students in North America. They're huge in the States, help them with their, career development, right? So, resume, interviews. The company recently got acquired for like $15 million by a NASDAQ kind of public company. Yeah. So that's kind of where I realized, oh, damn, there's huge potential here and something I enjoy as well. Basically helping, giving back and helping people who were basically in my shoes 3 years ago and try my best to help them out. And so I kind of keep on the side and keep doing it and joined Scotiabank in February 2018. Just to kind of buy myself more time. Truthfully, I was not that interested in becoming an employee at a big bank. It's just more for me to buy myself some time so that I can see what I can do and experiment with the research path. So I tried different business models. And funny enough, I was actually having a conversation with a guy from Omas Ventures about the income share agreement space. So basically, I started with kind of like I said, one-off resume edit, mock interviews and stuff like that, right? And I came across a concept called income share agreement. It's getting really popular in the States, less so in Canada, but HackerU now, I think they changed their name, but and a few other kind of coding boot camps are doing stuff similar to that. But in the States, the biggest player, I think, other than the Purdue University, et cetera, is Lambda School. It's a huge one. And Pathrise and a few others. So I thought, oh, this is interesting. It makes perfect sense in terms of aligning incentives between the students and the corporation or the mentors. So I decided to give it a shot and see what happens. So I started in end of 2018, just experimented this business model and reached out to people on LinkedIn. LinkedIn was my kind of business development gold mine or tool, and just go on LinkedIn and type, oh, actively seeking analyst position, and I reached out and be like, hey, I'm Shawn. I run this career accelerator with 36paths. What we offer is basically helping you to land into financial analyst position of financial service industry, and we do in a way where you don't have to pay any upfront tuition fees. Would you interested in jump on a quick call, right? So that's how it got started, and to a point where I had 5 students who basically enroll in the new program. And they paid $1,000. I imposed a kind of security deposit to make sure that students who sign up are not gonna just like drop out of the program, and when they get an offer, so to kind of basically have them have some skin in the game, right? So basically have them to be financially committed, obviously sign an agreement, and 3 out of 5 graduated in the sense that they got an offer and started pay me back in terms of income share, which is 10%. Let's say someone who got a job offer for, I don't know, 40,000. 40,000 is the floor. If you get a job that's less than 40,000 annual salary, you don't have to pay anything. But once you hit 40,000 and you decide to take it, and the $1,000 deposit is going to be applied towards the total tuition fees outstanding, and the rest of the 3,000 because of 10% of that, right? So total it's 4,000, and the rest of the 3,000 comes in 3 months once you start working to manage your cash flow that way. So 3 students graduated, got an offer, started paying me back, and that was early 2019, and I was at my highest moment again. I'm like, oh wow, this is gonna work. I'm gonna be startup founder. I'm gonna make millions to billions of dollars, exit, this and that. I'm just living my dream, and the big ego just started to constantly talk nonstop, and I'm like, okay, I can't deal with Scotiabank anymore. I can't become just another employee at a large bank where I'm just cocking the wheel, and I have bigger challenges I need to work on. I got to make the world better. I got to make my millions of dollars and this and that, and I was completely unconscious, spiritually speaking, as in that I wasn't aware of my thoughts and emotions, and I basically got taken over by just a cool thought that I haven't really validated because the sample size is so small, and there are a lot of questions I haven't really looked into. What happens if the client went back to China. What happens if the client just decided to do a master's degree? Things that I'm encountering right now. I'm like, oh damn, I wish I had taken my time to really kind of be more patient. But at that time, I was feeling miserable because I was still at a bank doing 9 to 5, but I feel like those hours could be more productively used if I actually focus on full time. I feel like Scotiabank in a way is delaying my timeline in terms of becoming exit my business with $10 million. And I was feeling miserable. I was having daily conversation with my parents. My mom was very supportive. So was my dad. And they were like, okay, if you want to give it a shot and you really think you have a shot, even though you better have that expectation that it might not work out. But it sounds like you're, really have to try it and then go for it. So because every day I was like, I got to quit my job. I can't do this anymore. It's boring stuff, bureaucracy. I can't, focus on my startup and make millions and this and that. And my mom's like, okay, just quit. And if it didn't work out, you can always get a job after. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So finally, I guess I just pulled the trigger and decided to quit in 2019 May. This May. So it's been half a year focused on it full time. Focused on full time, and again, lots of ups and downs, but had a lot of success. Got in total actually 15 students in the new program. Like I guess the income share agreement program, but some of the graduated started paying back, but like any startup, there's ups and downs, and I definitely was being overly optimistic about my execution ability, and more so about, I think I had a much higher expectation that I was bound to not able to meet, because I haven't thought about a lot of things in terms of whether this is something that people will be receptive of, and whether a lot of like logistic issues that I haven't really encountered, and I was just basically projecting a best case scenario, which will usually never realize. So reality hit my face, and early on, the first couple 2-3 months was relatively fine. I'm still in a trial period. I'm like, okay, it's gonna get better. Even though from outside looking, it's not bad. I mean, 15 people decide to give you $1,000 to learn from you or other mentors that have partnered with. It's not a bad thing at all. But when you were looking at how much you were paid before, and right now that becomes your only source of income, your mentality is just much more fragile, and you're looking at bank account and be like, oh, that doesn't feel great. Then you becomes the grass is always greener. Mentality is kicking in again, where like, oh, being a full-time employee is not that bad actually. When those, you get paid monthly salary and you get that, certainty. But yeah, I guess it's part of the game. I've been talking too much. I'll let you.
No. I like it. The stories about you, not me. But I guess like, just in case the listeners might be a little confused, because income sharing is a concept that you and I are very familiar with. But in case they're not fully aware, it's like, so schools like Lambda School and your company's 36paths, what they do with income sharing is like, you don't have to pay upfront for like these like boot camps, and you just do it practically like just with a deposit or practically just for free, and then you practically pay based on the salary that you earn, and that's how the company makes money. And it's honestly, I think, a great alignment of incentives that a lot of my not a lot, but a few of my friends who did boot camps in the States, they had that kind of structure, and I was like, that makes perfect sense. That's a great way to switch a career. I don't know why not enough companies or schools are doing that now, but I just wanted to kind of add that caveat in case people are a little confused. But because then people now be like, okay, that makes sense. That's why people are joining on to like 36paths. But yeah, dude, it's you've been on quite a journey, and I remember when we first met and we chatted, I felt like, kindred spirit on this solo founder journey, solo creator journey. And I guess it's been a 6-month mark for you, and man, how are you feeling?
That's a great question. If I have to be fully honest, not the greatest, and I'll tell you why, because I think, like I said, I kind of alluded to it early on, that I had really high expectations, right, when I quit. And you know, I basically invest so much. I mean, I was basically doing it part-time since like 2017 in August, you know, it's been like over 2 years part-time. But and I had such, I feel like I tied so much of my personal and business identity to it. And I was basically hoping that, you know, I had a strong desire this is going to work out, because, oh, it makes sense. Why would anyone who would, you know, pay like 5-10K upfront to another career consulting company, which recently just got acquired, I was alluding to earlier, why would the students ever do that? But students are doing it because they did really well in terms of their social media marketing, or they already established their processes. And frankly, a lot of some painful learning experience for me is that some of the students are just used to paying upfront, you know, for their tuition fees, and it's a business model that they're already used to. And I think another factor I realize is that it allows them to be more committed, right? Let's say you pay 5K up front, then you're like, oh, I better study well. I better, you know, invest my more efforts. I mean, like 1K to a lot of international students, that's nothing, right? They paid 100K for their enrollment for your undergrad, so like 1K is 1% of that. And I think that little upfront for the demographics I was targeting might not be particularly a good fit. That's my assumption. That remains to be validated. But I think for this demographics where they do have the wallet to actually pay upfront, and when you sell them to something that seems better, they might not be particularly receptive to it, because first, it's a new concept which requires education, and secondly, it's that, you know, they don't have as much skin in the game versus they put down 5K, and they'd be more committed to that learning experience. And also, like for me, just personally, like I said, I wasn't feeling as well, is because as I hoped, is because you know, you were not making as much money, because you're like 80 or 90% of fees are in the future, right? Whenever the student decided to take an offer, or, you know, and they could decide to just not apply for a while because they wanted to, I don't know, do their GMAT and apply to masters. And those are things that I didn't really factor into my income share agreement, and I just basically drafted myself. You know, I'm not a lawyer, so there are definitely a lot of learning lessons I've learned over the past, you know, especially over the past 6 months, and a lot of ups and downs. Whenever you had clients who liked your idea, you feel like you get that validation, that kind of strengthen your belief that the thing's going to work out. So I talked to my girlfriend and my parents a lot. It's like I have that high and low energy cycle, or kind of like, you know, peaks and valleys whenever, and it's very much tied to external conditions or circumstances, right? So when, you know, 2 clients sign up, I'm like, oh wow, I'm the big shot now. I'm gonna make it big, right? And when people are like, oh, they decide to not take an offer, even though if they take the offer, I will get paid, but they decide not to take an offer because of whatever reason, or they decide to pursue their master. I'm like, what am I going to do? And you have their low moments. So I think a lot of times it's that I think it's hard, particularly hard for me, because I think I have always having that kind of, you know, big ego, I guess, not in a like terrible way, but like big ego as in like you always set big goals and you wanted to make it happen. You always want to accomplish it. And I have always been fairly lucky, I guess, throughout my process, even, you know, in terms of getting jobs in investment banking, or, you know, getting my CFA, CPA. I was always been kind of the person that people look up to from my peers. And this is the kind of the first or maybe second time where I felt lost, and I don't know, and particularly, like, honestly, this week has been tough in the sense that I just didn't feel like doing it. Didn't feel like doing anything related to 36paths or the business or life in general. I just kind of apathy. I think it's because there's the conflict internally that kind of tear me apart, where, you know, the reality is that it wasn't going as well as I hoped. But, you know, at the same time, you feel like, you know, if you then also there's reality of like you don't feel like doing it because maybe the reality wasn't as well as you hoped, and there's also another you who is telling you, be like, starting to judge you, be like, if you're not working on it, of course it's not going to work out, and you better get up and do stuff. It's kind of like I feel like tortured in that process, and also because I'm running this myself, right? There's my girlfriend's away from 9 to 6, 8 to 6, right, actually, and just myself and just in my condo, just trying different things, and you don't know what's gonna work out, and you, I think because reality hits you in that you kind of lost that conviction a little, and over the past few weeks I've been thinking about maybe I'll keep this on the side and start looking for a full-time job again. I'm not saying giving it up, because I still think that there's a potential, and I temporarily kind of paused the income share agreement model as well, because I think it wasn't a right fit for me at this time, because I think it's definitely a great business model. It's a great concept, but it requires a lot of infrastructure and regulations and basically manpower. You better have, because right now I'm taking on any student who is applying, but reality that shouldn't be the case. You should take on students that you feel like are you're in a position to help and are basically able to kind of get offers, committed, motivated. But right now I just don't have the luxury to do that, or there's not enough interest in this business model. And so I have to take whatever that's out there, and which is not the right thing to do, and which creates further issues down the road. So I temporarily revert back to kind of the upfront, fee model, similar to the previous career coaching company that platform I was on, and see what happens. But in the meantime, I'm also open to looking for a full-time job again and see what happens. And I'm always honest and transparent about it, and I think that's just kind of my journey so far. And to answer your question, wasn't the greatest feeling right now, but yeah, I'm trying to accept that reality, and instead of being, I think before I was resisting that reality, and my mom was saying that the income share agreement sounds like really good, but also like it's so innovative, and you're not going to get a lot of money up front. Like, there are a lot of risks. Have you thought about it? I'm like, Mom, you don't know this. Like, alignment of incentives, the new most innovative model. I'm going to outcompete all the competitors who are targeting my demographics, let's say, Chinese students who are trying to get jobs. Like, I'm going to blow them out 10 times better, the innovation, this and that. I'm like, okay, you go try and let me know how you feel after 6 months. And I'm like, Mom, you're right. I should listen to you. I should just be more open-minded, because I was, basically bought into the big concept and invest my sense of self in it. And that's why I think the big letdown really kind of hit me. And frankly, 2 weekends ago was probably my lowest moment, where I honestly just couldn't sleep at night. I woke up 3 a.m., just couldn't sleep, and I got super panicked. I was like, wow, am I gonna die? Because I have read on one of the books I really like, it's called Why We Sleep by Matt Walker.
Matt Walker, I love
it. Yeah.
So
it's a great book, and they were talking about one of the rare disease where when you were in early 20s or late 20s, some people got there in their late 20s, like, that's me, 27, oh damn. And they're like, you might actually get 8 hours sleep normally, and gradually become 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and gradually die of exhaustion. And what happened on Friday night 2 weeks ago was I got 5 hour, and Saturday night I got probably on and off 4 hour. I'm like, damn, I'm gonna die next Saturday. I just out of lack of sleep. And my mom's like, stop. Like, I have that similar experience before when I was running some stressful projects and whatever. Like, that's totally normal. But when your mind was complete, just creating those dark thoughts and negative emotions, it's just like a wild river, just drag you in, and you just can't think properly. You can't get your mind straight anymore. Because to me, I later on realized that I feel like there was, I failed. There's kind of annihilation of myself because of the reality of this business is not going as well as I hoped when I quit. I was announcing to the world that Scotiabank, see ya, Scotiabank, I'm never coming back. You know, I will never become employed again. And you just like you put all your chips in this kind of basket here, and it wasn't going as well as you thought, and you just that kind of loss of his sense of self is scary, because your mind was thinking you're done, like, because of this business, which is super stupid when you look back. Like, it's just business, like, you can always get a job, you can be cashier at Tim Hortons. No offense to those occupation, I'm just saying that you can always make a living. It's Canada. You're not going to die of starvation. Like, if you lower it, like, I think ultimately it's just ego, right? I think a lot of it is because how I grew up and how I was always being successful, how I was the guy who people look up to. Oh, you come out of the program, you're making the most money, you got into investment banking, you know, when you were an international student, you know, you got your CFA and CPA when you were 26 and stuff like that. Like, people just like, you know, I think it just, that further strengthened that ego or false sense of self, and came to a point where, you know, those setbacks and letdowns become such a big disappointment that it's hard for you to climb out of. Yeah. I'm not sure this interests your audience, but
I think, well, for me at least, the selfish nature of this podcast is that it interests me, and it's very interesting because I don't want to make it about me, but I do see it. I see myself in that struggle. Like, I might have talked about it before, maybe on the podcast or maybe on one of my essays, where it's like, like, I've had moments where I sit here, I sit in this condo, and I look out, and I like look at my balcony, and I go, how would I have to jump for me to die faster? Like, to make it instant so that I don't suffer. Like, I've considered the angles. How would I jump out of it? How would I would I hang out on the other side? Like, because like, you have these moments where it's just, it's like the danger zones of you just sit in your condo and you think, what am I doing? And nothing seems to be working. Yeah,
I remember you wrote that in your essay. Yeah, I think I saw that.
And it's like, like, you feel like you're crazy, and there are very like dark moments like that,
and they're non-stop, right? Like, they have the momentum. They're like one thought after the other.
Yeah, or like I'm crossing the street, and then the truck goes by, and then I think, what if I just stepped right in front? It could just end all now. And and I think those are very dangerous thoughts, and I'm not saying like I'm suicidal or anything, but I think it's a thought that a lot of people probably go through having. I don't think I'm unique in that at all.
No, and not alone.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. And I think that, you know, that's why like this kind of community is important, where we talk about this kind of stuff, because it's like, it's normal. Like I remember when in my first 6 months, because I think now I'm close to 18 months now. Yeah. And I remember my friends, they always, every time I see friends, they always ask, how you doing? Yeah. Are you happy? Are you at least happy? And then,
I read that happy essay. Yeah, it's really good.
Thank you, man. And like I tell them, I think after the 6 months, I tell them, you know, I'm feeling that pain. Like, I'm feeling that pain of no money. Like, you know, the bonus I used to have, the guy I used to be, or the guy that people thought I was. You know, and you know, it's and then over time, I think, like, now I'm at a great place now. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean the bad thoughts don't come. They still come. But I think it's been a really long process for me, at least, too.
Well, you're 3 times more into this journey than me, so.
Well, and everyone's different, right? You might figure all this shit out like next month. I might just be someone.
Oh, is it actually cool to swear? Okay.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
And I was trying to be very conscious about.
Oh, dude, no, it's all right. Like, I swear so much on this podcast. I think everyone's like, no, and that I tangent is like, I remember when I first got into KPMG, I swore in my interview, and I did it purposely because I was like,
show the passion.
Yeah, I wanted to be like, I just want to let them know, like, I'm not going to be this politically correct guy. So I was just throwing F-bombs and like saying shit in the interview, and then I got it. I'm like, all right, it works. Yeah. And then like that's just how it just went on. But that's that side tangent. But like it's been like, just like you said, like, you start sometimes, like, I've at least for me, I've had times where I'm like, God, I wish I had a job. Life would be so easy. Like, people complain, but you just gotta show up. You don't have to do anything. Just sit down and you get paid. Like, for many jobs, I'd say, like, and like, it's, and you have these kind of thoughts, but
totally.
I'm just spinning off shit that I just think of in like the back of my mind, and it's definitely not been easy. Like I've had to, like, that's why I started incorporating like quarterly retreats where
Yeah.
I just take 2 weeks off every quarter.
Yeah.
Even then, I think it only took until like the 3rd time that I did that I decided to take time off. Like the first time I flew out to New York, got a hotel room, 1 week in New York, ended up working the entire week until like the second last day. I was gonna fly. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna rest now. I think I can do it. I think I can do it. And then I finally did it for like a day and a half, and then I flew out. I was like, what a fucking waste. I was stressed out completely in my hotel room in New York, and then I did it again when I was in Vancouver.
Right.
I was so sick at that point though that like I got really sick.
Physically?
I got some virus, and I ended up.
I remember. Yeah, that vlog in UBC you were talking about it?
Sorry?
The vlog you had at
the vlog.
UBC.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh god, I got sick, and that forced me to not work. But right after that, I went straight working, and then I went to Europe, and I think that really helped out. But
decompress or
no, just get away from everything.
Yeah,
and try to freshen up the mind.
You got to have some space, right, for your mind. Otherwise, it's too full, and there's no new ideas and solutions coming in. It's just, it's too full.
It's just shit.
Yeah.
Every day I'm just crying more shit into my head, and I don't even feel like I'm much coherent now in terms of what I'm saying. But it's all I can say is like when most of the times now when people ask me like, how's everything, I'm tired. I'm really tired. I'm exhausted. I remember I'm curious about how you kind of alluded to this, but when early in my journey, I remember I'd wake up in the mornings and I would not want to get out of bed. I was like not motivated, and then in my mind though, then I have the voice telling me, "But aren't you supposed to be tap dancing out of bed? Mm-hmm. Aren't you supposed to be motivated and excited?" And I'm thinking, "Fuck it, I'm gonna stay." And like I'd stay in bed. On like some days I remember I just stay in bed until like 1 p.m. I just wouldn't go out. Like,
well, similar. It was like 11 a.m. or whatever.
Yeah. And it's like that constant voice of you just feel like shit, where your mind is telling you like
dialogue.
What a loser! Come on, man! You chose this.
You chose this.
Yeah. It's on you. What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? The fuck up right now. And write your blog. And record your podcast. Do whatever.
Exactly.
It can't be bad, right? That voice so strong.
Yeah, and you gotta turn it off sometimes. Like you gotta. For me at least, I've tried to like stop working and actually go out and see friends.
Yeah,
and
that helps for sure.
That took about a year to realize. Believe it or not, that's what I'm telling you. I'm very slow at this. So I think you might get it faster, but
no, I don't think you're slow. I think a lot of times when you're so in it, you don't realize things that others out to tell you, and a lot of times they tell you, and you just don't agree because you might like intellectually I understand I should probably relax or should probably hit the gym to help me decompress and stuff like that. But when you're in the zone, you don't. I literally even listen to my mom when apparently the advice is very valid. I think it's because the more we're investing in our sense of self in whatever we do and we think that's who we are, the more dangerous it becomes in terms of you can go off the road and took so long for you to realize that you're that's not the direction I wanted to go or I want to be going.
Yeah, man, that took a weird ass tangent, but I like it. But unfortunately, I think we're kind of coming near to the end of our time, so maybe we'll have I'm curious. We might have to do a follow up after like another few months to see how things are going for both of us.
I would love to.
That'd be really fun. But as we kind of wrap up this kind of final leg of this interview, I'm curious. Like, is there anything like we didn't cover that you wanted to you're dying to talk about today?
Not really. I think we covered pretty much everything, and I'm glad I had this opportunity to basically share, what was going through for the past 6 months, and share with someone who clearly has already done is being through it, is in it right now. Maybe we can talk about, I guess next steps for us. I mean, I'm considering basically get a full-time job again, just so that I can feel a little bit better. Maybe I just decided to give in. Maybe my mind was not strong enough. Maybe my my heart is not there yet, and I need kind of financial support for me to feel better. And also I guess I decided to be open or embrace the idea of that, this thing a lot of times is not like how much time or efforts you put in, despite the fact that sometimes you just don't feel like working on it, which I'm sure you can relate to that as well. But also just let's assume that you're fully dedicated to it and you're 100% on all the time, and if you put a lot of time and efforts, and this thing might still not work out, right? It might not work out as the way you hoped it, and right now, if I'm not okay with it, it's actually not healthy, because you're basically tying your entire internal peace and mental health to something that is highly likely to fail, and because the startup or small business or creator, 99.9% of them don't go as well or fail, right? So when you tie in so much your internal peace or mental health to that thing that is statistically speaking highly likely to fail, you're doing yourself a disservice, right? And I think it really depends on different people, right? I think a lot of people, I admire people who have that, just basically go into debt to pull their business out of ashes and basically make it happen, make it big. I really admire those people, but I think a lot of people what they don't realize is that what they have gone through, right? Those dark moments and dark days, they probably experience way worse. I mean, my business is like just a website, similar to yours, right? Like maybe, some other stuff, but it's like fairly capital, not heavy, right? So capital light, I guess. But for a lot of other business, like restaurants and coffee shops and those guys, they go into bank loans to buy a store or to invest in facilities, and turns out it wasn't like that. I'm sure they're going through even tougher times, but I guess sometimes things like that come with time. Maybe I decided to embrace the fact that maybe right now might not be fully ready for it, or in terms of full-time wise, or I might still keep going on, but I'm trying to tell myself to not resist to the reality, and be more realistic, and if my mind is not strong enough if I don't really want to torture myself to a point where give all in and see if it works, and then you don't have to. There's a way where you can, let's say get another job and work full time, and you still keep this thing on the side. Maybe at future, maybe 2 years later, there's a co-founder, or maybe the income share agreement becomes more mature, and maybe there's right timing, right people, like things like that. Like in a universe, a lot of times are completely out of your control. I think just become more used to, I guess, accepting the reality and offer no resistance to it. Like I'm always kind of the kind of guy who's like, I'm gonna fight reality. I don't want to believe in it. You get fed into so much of those motivational stuff. It's like, through sheer will and efforts and hard work, anything can be accomplished. But you only see those that made it. What about those that didn't? Right? That's very much like survivorship bias, right? Like what happened to those guys? Never made YouTube videos about, oh, I actually failed. Well, some do, but a lot of those are just so sad. Or maybe they commit suicide, or they just became whatever. But I wanted to kind of talk about it so that people realize that it was not easy at all. I was way overestimating how easy, how difficult it is, but I learned a lesson, and I guess it was a good kind of journey for my heart, and mental health. But yeah,
no, it's that's true. Amen to that. I can't really disagree with that. And yeah, I think next for me, at least, I've been very public about this too. It's just I've been looking to join an organization for a long time.
Yeah.
And for me, that's just been a journey of I spent time building out the platform.
Since September,
then,
right? You put on your now page.
Yeah. And then I did freelance coaching. I consulted startups separately, and then that all kind of gradually led into, I tested this hypothesis, I tested this other hypothesis, and to do what I want to do, it seems like, oh, I have to get a job. And that's just been the reality of it. And it's just been a continuous changing of the mental model of size of company, type of company,
right,
industry, type of leader, and just
Yeah.
constantly narrowing things down, like quote unquote, like industry position title, put title that I want,
Right.
role that I want. And yeah, like that's like I continuously update the now page for people that are interested. And yeah, like that's just how it's been a progression for me. But you know, Shawn, this is a, you know, life, right? Life is long, and this is just a blip on the radar of our lives, and it's awesome time to hear about yours and share mine, and kind of you know, join this kind of brotherhood together in that.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story
Thanks
with
so much, Daniel.
myself
Appreciate
and
it.
the listeners. Thank you.
Awesome. Great.
All right, take care, man.
You too. Bye.
All right, thank you for listening to the podcast. I hope the story was inspiring to you. Hopefully it also helped you expand your perspectives. Hopefully it also made you question the default path that you might have been going on, or the default beliefs you might have had. And maybe now it'll make you even think about doing something about it, doing something different, maybe challenging yourself, being courageous. Who knows? But regardless, I'm really happy that you took some time out of your day to listen to this fantastic story with my guest. And if you would like to somehow, in some way, contribute and help support the podcast, and maybe even just be part of the community that I'm trying to build with the greater OMD Ventures platform, really think about being a stakeholder in the platform. And the quick way to do that is to go to my website, oldmandan.com, and go to the stakeholders page. I believe it's oldmandan.com/stakeholder. And the link is also down below. And that's how you can figure out how you can subscribe, follow to get more updates on the free content. But at the same time, also donate. And donate by actually just buying me a coffee. That's just how I put it. And you can buy me a coffee a month, coffee a week, or coffee every day of the year. And think about it as the way that, you know, if you wanted to chat with me, you might just bring me out for coffee and buy me a coffee. Or if you wanted to bring one of my guests out to chat, you might buy them a coffee. So just think of it as I'm the service that's doing that for you, so you can just pay me in coffees. Don't worry, everything will still be free. It would just really help if you would like to show your support this way, so that I can use the coffee money to buy myself actual coffees, and also to buy my guests actual coffees, and use the leftover money to actually grow the platform, as well as even keep it operationally alive as well, because all this isn't really free, and it does take a lot of time to build it as well as operate it, and hopefully grow it further. So your support would be amazing if you would like to contribute. And so yeah, just check out the website, go to the stakeholders page, and read the different kind of benefits you might even get as a stakeholder. All right, thank you.